I was trying to figure out what what do I want to talk about today, and I'm lining up some people to come on as a guest, which I think is going to be awesome. Okay, um, but here's the thing. Let me kind of set this up a little bit. When you call a trainer, when you call me, you are looking for professional help. Okay, we go to the doctor because we need professional help. But when I get on scene and I'm explaining things to the owners, like don't do this, don't do that, and here's why. And then the owner wants to buck the system and like, nah, whatever. I'm like, why am I here? Why am I in your living room? And a lot of people give too much affection to their dogs. Okay, unhealthy relationships. Okay, unearned affection. And I'll explain that to them. I'll break it down. And I did it earlier today, and that's a hard thing for people to grasp. Wait a minute, I'm loving my dog too much. Don't take it out of context, but they're just always wrapping your arms around a dog's neck, and the dog is just kind of not well mannered. The obedience is bad. All it is love, 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 and that's not healthy. Okay, and you're never going to have the dog that you want if you just love on it all the time. Okay, there needs to be that structure, that leadership, to the dog. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to title this Disgruntled Client. This is one of my own clients, and I doubt very seriously that he's going to see this or hear this. But if they do, then tough. I mean, because it is what it is. Okay. So I had this client that it's an older man, and he had a German Shepherd. If you don't know, I train a lot of German Shepherds, and it started off. I think sometimes you can judge a book by its cover when they say don't judge a book by its cover, but I think you can sometimes. And this is one of those. I talked to the gentleman on the phone for quite a while, and then I went to the house that afternoon to evaluate the dog. Now, years ago, I used to travel all over Middle Tennessee for free. And partly my fault. I just felt like I was getting taken advantage of, and I guess I let it happen. I did too much with the dog, and people never came for training. So I charge now to go to somebody's house, and I won't get into the numbers, but I charge now to go to somebody's house and travel and evaluate their dog. But if you sign up for training, I'll give you a cut. I'll give you a little bit of a break on that. So I gave this potential client all the details, how I train, like I always do. And I said, this is my fee for coming to do the evaluation. And he said, okay. So I go to the house, and, nice guy, but in a lot of ways, he's just a Scrooge. I mean, he really is. I listen to him the way he talks to the dog, and excuse me. And I was just like, man, I feel bad for the dog. So we talk some more, and I visit with the guy, and he's like, well, how about these collars, and how about these e-collars? And I said, don't buy anything. I will tell you exactly what to buy. Don't buy anything. We don't need it right now. I've got extra supplies. Don't buy anything. I want to make sure somebody's going to pay a lot of money to have their dog trained. I want to make sure you get the right tools. You have the right gear for the dog. So he said, oh, okay. So I'm out in the driveway and he gives me a check. And that check did not include my fee for the evaluation. And so when I brought it up, he was like, "Oh, I thought that was included in it, and now you're going to make me go back in and write another check." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "Just forget it. Just forget it." But in my mind, I was like, "This doesn't feel good," and we're already getting started off on the wrong foot, right? So I scheduled the dog, and I have the dog on my Facebook page. I believe she's still on there. So they comes time for the drop off day, and they come, and we're bringing everything in, and I don't say anything at the time, but he brings in this big bag of Purina, and so he leaves, and when an owner drops off a dog, there are no goodbyes. We don't want to put the dog under any other added stress. You just get your dog and leave. You just jump in your car and you leave, and then I take the dog on a walk. Okay? So that's what I did. So we finish up and we come back in the office just to hang out, and I'm sitting right here where I'm at. And she's like right between my legs, and she starts shaking her head. And well, let me back up for a minute, because one of the things that he had said to me was, "Hey, I'm going to send you eardrops in case she has an issue with her ears." And he said, "Yeah, she's had ear infections in the past." Now, I don't mind giving somebody's dog heartworm or, any kind of prevention like that, while they're here. But your dog needs to be healthy when they come. You don't want to set it, because if a dog has an ear problem, the dog's going to be probably in pain. Okay. And I wouldn't want to give an unfair correction to a dog, because they could be acting up a certain way because of pain. And I don't want to do that. Plus, if you're the owner, you should make sure that the dog's medicine, they've done a follow-up to make sure the dog's clear. So he comes and he brings the dog, and like I said, I'm sitting here with her, and she starts rubbing her ear, and I'm like, "Man, I've seen that before. I know something's wrong." And so I kept an eye on it, and then later that day, I said, "Hey, man, I think she has an ear infection." That dog, and like, it's the dog's fault. Okay. And so I've had that dog to the vet, and blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff, right? I said, "Listen, I think she has an ear infection." I mean, she's been with me less than 6 hours. And so he schedules an appointment, and I meet him at the vet the next day with the dog. And we're in the room, and he's like fussing the whole time because his dog, he's got to be back at the vet again. "This dog has cost me so much money," and yada, 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 all this stuff. And then he starts going down the political path, and I hate conservatives and, and yada, yada, yada. And I'm not going to make this a political thing, but I never opened up my mouth. I didn't get into it with him. Okay. But it's telling me a little bit more about this guy. So they test the dog's ears, and she has a really bad infection in her right ear. The same ear that he was supposed to have been treating before. So I asked the vet, I said, when was she treated last for her ear? And he said, I think it was June, like a few months prior to that. Now, if you and I go to the doctor and we need to get an antibiotic, what does the doctor tell us? Even if you are feeling better, take it until it's completely gone. Okay? Now, this bottle of eardrops that he had was not full. Okay? It's not like a bag of potato chips. It's like half the bag has got chips in it, the other half is air. No, you could tell that there was some that was out of this bottle. But if he had given the medicine to his dog like he should have, that bottle would have been empty, in my opinion. But it wasn't. So we leave, and I think it cost him like $160 or something like that for that day. And he is fussing. He's mad, and he's like, come on, girl. And he's like yanking the dog and everything. And I said, listen, I can't take her like this. She needs to be better. Let's wait until you do the follow-up. Okay. And so 2 weeks came, did the follow-up. She still has the infection. And I said, well, we're just going to have to wait, to the end of the month. We'll get her in the next month. So this is where it starts to get a little juicy. I don't know, probably 3 days, I'm guessing, before she comes, I get a text message from this guy. And it was like this. I just took her to the vet again, but she's okay. But if you're not going to take her, tell me now. I'm like, what? So let me stop right there. This guy, I told him, don't buy any prong collars, don't buy any tools, don't buy any e-collars. Okay? What did he do? He gets on Amazon. He goes and buys some cheap piece of crap e-collar, still in the box, thankfully. Buys a prong collar he shouldn't have bought. You know what I mean? He doesn't listen. He's going to do it his way, and that's it. So I'm looking at this text message, and when I'm reading, it's like, if the dog is okay, why would I not take her in for training? And I said, yes, if she's fine. I said, of course I'm going to take her. And I said, be here on this day at this time. I said, okay. So he gets here, and he's not really saying much. And I said, why'd you take her back to the vet? Was there something going on? She was still rubbing her ear. So I took her back and paid another $100 whatever dollars it is, to go get her looked at again, and he's mad at the dog. And he's just got this mean look on his face, and so I help him carry stuff in. And, we get to talking a little bit more, and then this is where everything starts to go south. So I said, well, what did the vet say? And he said they think it could be an allergy. And I'm standing right over here to my left by the door, and I've got all my tools, my leashes and collars and everything hung up right there. And I'm getting ready to switch out my leash with his leash. And the bag of food is just like right here beside me. It's Purina, still Purina. And he said they think it could be an allergy. And all I said was, I have a lot of clients that come here and their dogs have issues with Purina. It's just something for you to consider. It could be the food. And he turns and he starts yelling and he sticks his finger in my face and says, I don't want to blow up my thing here, but he says, I'm not listening to you. My vet said she needs to be on this until she's a year old. I'm not listening to you. I'm not changing that food. Now, you got to remember, I've told him in the past, don't buy prong collars, don't buy e-collars, and he's gone against me every step of the way. And now he's got his finger in my face, yelling at me in my house. So I took a breather and I'm just like, okay, I'm going to let it go, and I reached up and I grabbed my leash off the wall. And I said, you know what? Let me ask you a question. If you're not willing to listen to me or consider anything that I'm telling you, why are you even bringing your dog to me? And he said, I don't know. I don't know. And I said, get your dog and go home. Fine. Fine. So he's going, come on, girl. And he grabs a leash and he's yanking the dog. And then he goes out the door. And now I'm carrying the Purina out for him. And I'm standing at my door. And I said, in all the years I've been doing this, I've never, ever had anybody talk to me and treat me like you have. He goes, oh, no? Well, there's a first time for everything, isn't there? I'll leave out the exchange that we had after that. But I told him that he really needed to get in his car and get off my property. So he gets in his car and he backs out and he's like, I think he's cussing at me not under his breath, because I can hear him through, and I watch him drive out my gates. And when I came back inside, I noticed that he had forgotten his bottle of. Now, we'll say that is the only thing that he listened to me. Well, two things: to get the dog to the vet, and he did make a big order on the joint supplements. Okay, so he did listen for those two things. Outside of everything else, it was a disaster. Now, I'm thinking this guy's going to call me back, but I noticed that he left the joint supplements here. I'm like, I'm not calling this idiot back, right? So I did the right thing, and I mailed him his his package back to the house, and I haven't talked to him since. Okay, and I tell you, folks, I have never had to do that to a client. But you're not going to come in my house and talk to me that way when I'm doing everything that if it wasn't for me, your dog would still be battling a bad ear infection. And you want to get in my face? I mean, he's lucky I kept my composure. So here's the deal. If I don't listen to everything vets say, I'm just going to put that out there. Okay? I don't respect a lot of vets, probably most vets, because they recommend early spay and neutering, and all this stuff. And so they recommend products that aren't even close to being as good as these, but they probably get a really good kickback. And probably it's really big too, because they recommend it so much. Well, they're already at the vet. They recommend the Purina. Then they recommend the Dasequin, and you're right there. So, hey, instead of us going to the, somewhere else to buy it, let's just get it while we're here, right? And it's not always what is best for the dog. A healthy dog, a vet recommending spay and neuter them at 3 months old because they're a Dutch Shepherd. Spay and neuter the dog now, whether it's a Rottweiler or a German Shepherd, spay the dog or neuter the dog now, so he won't get aggressive. Guys, that's bullcrap. Spay and neutering does one thing. It makes the dog sterile. That's what it does. It makes the dog sterile. Now, if you cut a dog's testicles off, of course he can't get testicular cancer. Right? I mean, that is common sense, but why would you do that to the dog? I mean, I don't know one human that would do that to himself just because he might get testicular cancer, or a woman, cut her breast off because she might get breast cancer. I know people that have done that, but I mean, probably the percentage is very, very, very low. But when it comes to the dogs, they do it. And so, because this, and listen, and this is a young dog, and he took the recommendation of the vet, and she was already spayed. She was already spayed. I mean, she was less than a year old. But my vet said to feed this Purina until she's a year old. Okay? So I hope I never have to do that again. But he really, really crossed the line. And you're not going to do that to me, especially in my home. But when I'm doing everything possible to help your dog, and then you disrespect me that way, you don't want to even listen to what I've got to say. So again, I hope I never have to deal with that again. But I want to talk about something in closing. Where are we at? We're like at 30 some minutes. I think I've mentioned this before, and if there's anybody that listens to this, and the people that don't know me, maybe in podcast land, I am very generous with my time when it comes to talking to people on the phone. Okay. I don't set my timer for 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Some trainers, you're hardly even able to get 5 minutes out of them. They only tell you how much it is. Here's my availability. Can I sign you up? I don't do that. I don't ever want to do that. And I know maybe some of this is my fault because I do it. But the other day, I'm not going to mention any names, of course, but the other day I had a call, and this lady, they were in the beginning stages of looking for a trainer. Okay. If somebody calls me and I talk to them, I get the information from them, I will tell you up front, this is something that we can fix in person, or I recommend a board and train so we can build a foundation in the dog. And they wanted lessons at the beginning, but then I felt that I can convince them that the board and train was going to be the best way to go. Spent close to 2 hours on the phone with this person. Nice lady, and said all the right things, I guess. Okay. I'm really impressed with you. I love your training methods. I love everything. And when I gave price, I said, is that a problem? They said no. And then, we had a really good conversation, right? Really good conversation. And I always want to make sure that I've answered all the questions. People feel comfortable. And I always say, if you got any more questions, you can call me back. Okay. But she says, the last thing she said before she said bye was, I'm really excited to work with you. Let me talk to my husband, and I'm going to get back with you. So as long as I've been doing this, you would think that I get used to people lying to me or ghosting me and blowing me off. But I still give people a chance, right? And I think there's hope. So I did a follow-up. And I've totally gotten blown off. And and I'm not whining, so don't say, oh, you want some cheese with your wine or anything like that. But it's like, you would think that when you've talked to other trainers already and you tell me that I appreciate your time so much because I've talked to 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 other trainers and I can't even get 5 minutes out of them, but somebody takes an hour, 2 hours, 2.5 hours with you to make you feel comfortable, and you tell me that you're going to move forward with training, you just want to give the details to your husband or whatever. Now, if the husband says, let's look, see if there's a cheaper price, then I get that. But where is the human decency and the human courtesy of responding to a text message? And just to tell me, there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Just say, hey, we can't afford it right now. I really appreciate it. You know what I mean? Or just say, we can't afford it right now. Just the courtesy, of a trainer that has done everything to make you feel comfortable about dropping your dog off with me, and then you totally stick it to me. I'm going to be honest with you. It bothers me. It really does. I don't blow things off like that well. And somebody told me one time there's a saying that he learned in college that says, some will, some won't. So what? Somebody else is waiting. But still, I'm like, I genuinely want to help these people with their dog and help the dog. And then you can't even reply to a text message that would take you 5 seconds to do. It's very disrespectful, but that's the way our society is anymore. They'll know I'm not interested by not responding. But if I only spent 5 minutes on the phone with you, you'd be telling that to another trainer that you talk to. Might not mention my name, but you say, oh, I just talked to a trainer that he only talked to me for 5 minutes. And look, I give you almost 2 hours. And this is just one person. I spent time with people on the phone. I mentioned before in a podcast or on my live, 3 phone calls with somebody. So I'm saying all that to say this. The last thing I want to do is have to start charging people for my time on the phone. But if people are going to continue to stick it to me like this, then I'm going to get something for my time on the phone. So if you're out there in podcast land or on YouTube, you're watching this, you're checking me out, that could be coming. It could hurt me, but then it may also weed out the tire kickers. So I'm going to do one. I don't have it pulled up here, but I'm going to do one Q&A. I always recommend a board and train if your dog hasn't had formal training. Okay. If you don't, in my opinion, if you don't do that, you're grabbing pieces from different puzzles and you're trying to get stuff to fit. When I go into a house and people want to fix this issue or this issue, but then I start testing the dog and the dog will barely, and when I say barely, I mean barely even do a sit command. I mean, that's not good. Every dog, even if he hadn't have training, should be able to do a basic sit command. And so I'm just going to use this today as an example. Okay. I evaluated a pit mix. It's a pit mastiff mix. And I went for the dog jumping. Okay. But when I evaluated the dog is very fearful, very weary of men. So I get there and this dog is just hiding behind its owner. Okay. Now this is the dog that's just jumped on a 6-year-old girl, knocked her over. Now, this dog is like men, I'm not too sure of. And they've had the dog since a puppy, which is really strange. But the dog's always been, I can understand like if something happened with a man or something, but the dog is in this home since a puppy, and it's showing all this fear. Now, I'm going to tell you this. 2 things. Either genetics or there's been little to no building this dog up mentally, exposing the dog to different environments, socializing the dog, all these things. And so it's just been love, love, love in the home, and the dog hasn't been able to get out and be put in different situations that's going to build him up. If it's genetic, we can't change genetics. We can make them better. I mean, we can make the dog better, but we can't change. You can't make a cat bark and a dog meow. So I had to look at the situation. I had to assess the situation. And I told the owner, I said, now listen, in order to stop this dog from jumping, I need to encourage this dog to jump. But he's not going to jump on me because he's afraid of me. He's afraid of guys. So we got to set something up. There's nobody else here, so we're going to have to figure something out. But here's my problem. He already doesn't know me. He's already afraid of me. Now, if I start popping a leash and correcting him for jumping, now he's really not going to like me. And how's that going to carry over to other men? So I always want to do what's best for the dog. So I made a decision that I wasn't going to do that with that dog. Fortunately, she had another dog that we're having issues with, and jumping. So I was able to get a leash on that dog and then work with the owner so she could see what to do and then apply that to the other dog. I feel that it would have been wrong for me to take that dog that is already under stress and fearful, and I felt like it would have been wrong for me to start popping a collar and correcting this dog. Ultimately, the corrections need to come from the owners anyways, because I'm going home. So the dog needs to start looking at the owner differently. But let me tell you, when you have a fearful dog, one of the worst things you can do is just smother that dog with affection. It can be easy to do. This is a beautiful dog, but it can be very easy to do. But the best thing you can do is teach that dog to be away from you. If that dog's hiding behind you, step out of the way. Make that dog face his fears. Because I say, if you're afraid of roller coasters, you can walk around the park all day long, but if you never get on it, you're never going to get over it. So make the dog face the fears, okay? And everybody needs to be mindful of how much unearned affection are you giving your dogs. It's something to think about because it's not healthy, okay? All right, guys, listen, please share, okay? I'm really trying to get the word out about the podcast. Like, subscribe, and share on my YouTube channel, FlatTop K9. And I'm not sure, coming up fairly soon, hopefully within a month, I'm going to be having a guest on. And I hope you all have a great weekend, and I appreciate you tuning in. See you next week.